contribute to the richness of that kind of a debrief, that sort of exchange, would be, on the one hand, on the mediator's part, an actual or legitimate sense of disquietude or unsettledness about some aspect of their work or something of it. Sort of a, and I've been thinking about models where the default is deficiency and the default is capacity. And the default, just from my own brief experience here, but certainly in listening to you, would be in a sense of that there is a desire or a capacity to be on the part from the debrief, with that sense in the debriefer that the questor, I guess, which in this case is the mediator, has the capacity to become permeable, in a sense, to something different, and to actually then sort of provide something to answer their own question, or their own, in a way that becomes meaningful to them.
I mean, at the heart of this, of course, is exactly that, Peter, which is that they're learning something for themselves. It's a different kind of learning than being taught something, a skill, a technique, a bit of knowledge, and so on. This is really self-discovery, and so the learner has to come with some capacity, some interest in self-discovery, even if what prompts it is some, as my first example, a very, very successful experience, one that you just, it doesn't have to be grand, it doesn't have to be negative, it doesn't have to be anything. It just, there's something that occurred, and I'm curious enough to want to learn more about why that likely occurred and what my role in that was and or could have been. And I think that it takes an openness and curiosity on the part of the learner, some willingness to learn. And this is, in terms of the one limitation that I described about the ABA Reflective Practice Conference Call, is that until people are there often enough or read material that we post online for them to read about that this is a different kind of learning, a lot of what they want to do is jump in and offer answers. And there is a place for that. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what the learner really wants, is to have one or a group of people say, here are 10 different options, and you can choose from any of these 10. Go for it. Pick one. If that's comfortable for the debriefer and the mediator, then, and that's part of their agreement with one another, I don't have a problem with that. But that's a different kind of learning than what we're talking about. And I think useful, but far more limited than the process of self-discovery. And I think in those situations where people ask for the solution, they are less likely to be listening and paying attention. It's almost, this has been my experience, that it's almost as though they have a shopping cart, and what matters is whether that shopping cart gets filled, not necessarily what gets put into the shopping cart. that the level of curiosity and openness to learning isn't always there. Sometimes it is. But that's one of the challenges that I have when I'm working with a group of people, is helping figure out whether what somebody really is looking for is the answer because they are just utterly stumped and they've struggled, or whether they just they wanted to be part of the group and they thought that presenting a problem and getting people to come up with answers was a way of cementing relationships and keeping the group flowing and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there is a lot to say about capacity.
Yeah? It's not the one we talked about. I know there are people who can teach me things. I know that because for many years it's worked. I haven't learned everything people are trying to teach me, but I know there are people who know things I don't, who can share that with me, and then I can incorporate it into how I behave and what I do. And I'm prepared to believe that a group of other minds is likely to be as good, if not better, if not as good, as my mind in figuring things out. I'm willing to assume that I can contribute to that, and therefore I can teach myself by trying to examine what I've done and learn from myself, or even from a debriefer asking me questions about what I did. But I don't see that as, I see that as supplemental to, not taking the place of learning from other people. So my instinct, this is just personal, but my instinct, I've been mediating for, 8 or 9 years, something like that. My instinct is when I have something in mediation that I wonder how I did or how could I have done that better, there are many people to whom I can turn and say, how would you have handled this? And I think their answer to that is just as valid, if not more valid, than mine, because I didn't think of it, but they did. Okay, I'll incorporate that.
Well, here's my my concern. That can work if you also ask them the question why. And if you explore with them why the choice that they're proposing to you, why that was the choice, why that was the behavior, that was the intervention, why did it make sense to them? What's the basis for their thinking that leads to the decision about the intervention? Then you really can assess whether their advice is useful and relevant to you, or whether it's great for them but wouldn't work for you. You know, so go ahead.
I think I assumed that. I didn't articulate it, but I think I assumed that. There are. I wouldn't do it because someone told it to me. I would do it because someone mentioned it to me and it made sense to me. If they mentioned it to me and I didn't get it, I'd ask more questions until I either got it or decided, okay, that works for them, but it's not going to work for me. I'm not going to do that.
Right, and this is you're demonstrating exactly what Peter was just talking about, which is capacity. You have a desire not to get an answer, but to learn something.
Is that not true of most mediators? Aren't mediators curious?
I think so, but I also think, Chuck, that
I'm not willing to take credit for that. That's what I'm getting at. I don't see myself as being unique or even special in that. I think most people who are in this line of work kind of have that approach.